never been a moment that you were forgotten. You are not hopeless. Though you have been broken, your innocence stolen. I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear your SOS, your SOS. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you. There is no distance that cannot be covered over and over. You're not defenseless. I'll be your shelter, I'll be your armor. I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear your SOS, your SOS. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you. And I will never stop marching to reach you in the middle of the hardest fight. It's true, I will rescue you. I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear you whisper you have nothing left. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you. And I will never stop marching to reach you in the middle of the hardest fight. It's true, I will rescue you. Fight, it's true, I will rescue you.
Hi, everybody. This is day 2,122 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room right there on Fort Bliss. Betrayed because he didn't want our army to be used as a means of trafficking children, drugs, arms, ammunition, parts, fuel, and that the law enforcement would be used to retaliate. The JAG would be used to retaliate. The judicial system, media would be used to cover up, exploit, I'm not prepared. Oh, God. What they did to Richard for being a hero, for being courageous, for having a moral foundation. Because, they were bringing in young girls to compromise the soldiers. And I always told him, hell no, Richard. You don't mess with the women. Nope. You don't play with them. You treat them with respect. And when you find the right one and you have money in your pocket, you get a ring and you get married and you have a family and you honor God and you honor your oaths. You honor your commitments. And that's what he did. He said, hell no. I'd rather burn my money than spend it on whores and blow. We got the video. We got the video message to Belen Rocha saying, don't do it, Belen. They say they respect you, but they don't. They don't. They don't really respect you. They just want to see you naked. They're just horny. They just want to see you naked. Don't do it. They were compromising our soldiers within our own military base, in the barracks, either with their sex cult activities or their drugs or their their culture that they pulled down to be like a bunch of animals. And Richard stood above it and said no. And for that, they forcibly removed him because he became a whistleblower. Not only did he say no, but he said, we got to do something about this. 500,000 children were trafficked through Fort Bliss. You have Jeffrey Epstein's Zorro Ranch right there is pipeline. Everybody's cashing in on the pipeline. Lives being ruined at taxpayer expense at that, right? And he said no. The real soldier. And today we remember him every day. We're on here every day. But it's Memorial. It was Memorial Day. It's almost 1 o'clock in the morning now. And yeah. He's pulling down the pillars of that corruption, of that cartel. This is the El Paso Cartel Alliance with the Sinaloa Cartel, the El Chapo Sinaloa Cartel. And hold on for a minute. Okay, so this is the El Paso cartel that are in alliance. Well, what happened is our evidence confirms that they were making a alliance with all the cartels. One big alliance, a monopoly, a cartel monopoly. And this was, of course, the El Paso cartel, the El Chapo Sinaloa cartel, the CJNG cartel, the La Linea cartel, the Juarez cartel, and probably some we don't know about. And this has to do with the Mormon faction protection. It has to do with the Jeffrey Epstein trained because look, you can't be there for decades like he was without having a group that were part of his little cartel, right? And he was absolutely in alliance with Beto O'Rourke and Beto O'Rourke's father-in-law, William Sanders, and Obama and Biden, because you see Veronica Escobar holding the purse strings for Biden, for Kamala Harris, which is, unheard of that you have the same co-chair. It's seems like a humongous operation, but it really comes down to the same old people. El Paso cartel operative Alejandra de la Vega, double agent on both governors' administrations simultaneously on the Texas side and the Chihuahua side. So, they had this grand plan, to control the border, and they wanted to do it through a police state, really, because of this treasonous treaty that Maru Campos signed with Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Greg Abbott was enjoying his freebies from the El Paso cartel. He's absolutely compromised, y'all. And watch that. Yesterday, I played the video of their treasonous treaty signing. It just made your skin crawl because it was absolutely confirmed that it was treason. The day before that, I played Maru Campos's video of her being on the media, right? She did the media tour and she confessed to her treason. And of course, she has been handed the very next day, after it ended, I guess. I don't know how long this media tour lasted, a few days. But right afterwards, I mean, because the confession, they just didn't even have any excuses left not to issue her with a subpoena, and that their attorney general, FBI, Department of Justice, FBI, the FGR, they're kind of a combined, they have a different government system, but that they're absolutely investigating her for her treason. And so now I have another video I'm going to play, which I need to because that video that Allison made for Richard at the very beginning of all of this, I don't know how many times I've watched it. But, to think about Richard and what we know that they did to him is, I tell you, you have to have a lot of temperament to stay calm and to fight justice properly, because when you go through this, you really want the death penalty right squarely on the table. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So let's watch this. See what I have here. Oh, I hope I didn't. Oh, no. Close this up. Yeah, here it is. Let's change direction just a little bit and back to fighting for justice. And this is why we play these videos, because we are in the very vicious negotiations for the repatriation of Richard's remains, because when he was taken down to the basement room in his barracks building and they took his life and they stole his body, and evidence indicates they took his organs, they harvested his organs, and they took him to Mexico across the international border for disposal. Um, you know, can you imagine? I mean, that was such an act of war. And this is, Maru Campos is the Chihuahuan governor, and we have to investigate ourselves. We were told to investigate ourselves and to bring, the authorities' leads. We have done that. We have done that with, I can't even tell you how many letters. And this is what you have to do. You have to absolutely never give up, and you have to win over um, the trust of the people. And in our case, it is the Americans and it is the Mexicans and even the Germans. The Germans are part of this case too. Um, and so we have to win their trust. And today, someone says that to me. Left a message on Find Richard Halliday saying, at first, I just, it was so hard to believe you. I just couldn't even believe what you were saying was true. And then I kept watching, and you kept bringing forth we, well, we post all of the receipts, right? We post all the receipts, we make all the connections. And this person said, and now, everything, all the connections, it makes so much sense, right? It makes so much sense now. And we are absolutely understanding to how this takes a little time, because this is a crime that Americans, and I even think that the Mexican people don't even know that it exists, right? This kind of cross border infiltration, that it's not really about America and it's not really about Mexico. It's about mutineers. It's about like soft coups. It's the cartel wanting to build their own uh, country, and just take over that border area and do what they want to do. And the video of Governor Abbott and well, I call her the El Chapo fentanyl governor, Maru Campos, uh, that absolutely depicts what they're doing. They are acting like they are federal level um, officers, right? But they're not. They're state governors, and they are making treaty deals and security deals and putting forth these big sums of money without any kind of regard to the people of Mexico, that voted for the president of Mexico, the federal government, the international laws, the same thing with the Constitution of the United States and the federal government in the United. They have no regard for any of that. And it's very clear. And so, and because she has no regard for that, when she went on the media tour, she had forgotten that there were international and country sovereignty, Mexican sovereignty laws, the Constitution, and the American sovereignty laws and the Constitution. She just doesn't even think about that. And so she just confessed, put it all out there. Oh, yeah, that's what I was doing. I mean, even extraditing without, what were they doing? Throwing people in the back of cars and going over the border? There's no proper process for extradition. No, and so I don't want to be the one that says it. Let's hear this man and what he's saying about Maru Campos spilling the beans. I think it's so important.
Rather, you exude desperation. Two, she has a lot of money to spend. On one hand, two things are clear. Rather, you exude desperation. Two, she has a lot of money to spare to be in so many media outlets. And three, she got tangled up. She got into some terrible trouble. Maru Campos. What? It's one of those times when you say, wow, don't help her because you'll only harm her, right? And the truth is that her media tour was very unfortunate. We all know that the governor is the governor who invests the most in traditional media. She especially likes Latin-type media. And she has important and relevant contracts there. And indeed, yesterday, she toured several of these media outlets, and in what I believe was the worst appearance in an interview by a governor in Contemporary History on Radio Formula, she acknowledged on two things that really caught my attention. The first, that they did indeed know or operate with foreign agents. She said that she did accept it, she acknowledged it when asked expressly, but that wasn't the most serious thing. The most serious thing was that in this tangle of words, she also acknowledged that federal agencies in the United States asked her to detain Mexicans, and that she detains Mexicans and extradites them. I don't know what she means by extradite, because according to the extradition treaty, a state government does not have extradition powers. It is an issue that is addressed in the foreign ministry. And in that vein, I wonder if what the governor of Chihuahua was telling us about was another criminal act, that is, that she illegally detains Mexicans and passes them on to agencies in the United States, well, maybe through the trunk, we don't know, right? Delicate, very serious, really. In terms of a serious issue, I think the tour that Governor Maru Campos has given has been very unfortunate. She is a confessed criminal, and she is because the prosecutor, Gianluigi, acknowledged that foreign agencies were operating which are prohibited by the Constitution and by the national security law. The new prosecutor did the same, and now she is doing it personally. Well, she also got into a very bad mess because she says she denied it. Okay, we are not working, but hers is, and we have a confession on her part. There is a confession on her part, and this narrative that I am a governor who is fighting crime is false. I will tell you why. Because when you fight crime, it shows. If not, ask the president of Mexico and Omar Garcia Harfuch. Chihuahua is the state with the highest number of intentional homicides. Chihuahua is the state with the highest increase in drug dealing. Chihuahua is one of the states with the highest perception of insecurity, according to data from the NDIP. Chihuahua is the state with the highest number of kidnappings in the country, yielding results. Or rather, they were simulating something that was not happening. Because to dismantle drug labs, well, all you have to do is look at who the Mexican government is doing there. 2,400 drug labs have been dismantled against some undetained individuals. So it's not a matter of fighting crime. It is a very killing kind of power. So I'm An agreement whose objective we do not know.
Okay, so here is where you can find this video. Of course, it's in Spanish and it's been dubbed, but I think it's really important to watch the whole thing. But that beginning point I had to play on the live stream because it really tells you the seriousness of this and connects it to the whole environment of Richard. Because from the beginning, when we were getting evidence that Richard's remains were dismembered and trafficked across the border, everybody, well, not everybody, but many people were saying, no, that's not possible. That's not possible. And here you have it, that you have these agreements. The agreements were there before the treasonous treaty, okay? They were there before and they were there after this treasonous treaty. So they were combining or making an alliance with the cartels that were absolutely part of this transnational funeral home scam. Okay, so you have funeral homes with hearse, with vans, with vehicles that carry bodies across that border, back and forth. A group of purchase absolutely went back and forth, and absolutely Arianos. They live in El Paso. The Plenitude Crematorium, where over 400 bodies were found in the most horrible situation, where I've posted up I don't know how many pictures, bodies everywhere. And this was a funeral home, and almost a dozen, probably at a dozen now, funeral homes tied to this whole operation and this group of purchase. And the prime suspects, of course, Dallas Hart, but Tavita Nusa's brother, Solomon Nusa, being mortuary. And, I've been saying for years, the common denominators are that the people involved in Richard's case, the people coming after us, the attacks, the retaliation, everything, they had these common denominators, and it was that they were a Mormon faction and that they were mortuary, right? That they were mortuary operations. So, and now we know that organ harvesting was involved across the border, that this funeral home scam was transnational across the border up to no good, and that we have a huge infiltration of Mormon faction in our FBI and in our CIA, and that Maru Campos was absolutely giving them office space to U.S. agents from the CIA, from the FBI, from the DEA, from the DPS, which is totally infiltrated with the cartel. Okay, the DPS is totally infiltrated with cartel. Okay, they are lost. It needs to be shut down, totally shut down. And then the Homeland Security, border CBP, they were getting office space over in Juarez. They were absolutely ignoring the border, the actual border, and they were putting up their own police state, a cartel monopoly, a cartel alliance monopoly, with the head cartel being the El Paso cartel, and a weakened El Chapo Sinaloa cartel because El Chapo's in prison, right? And then his son's in prison. So they took over the El Chapo arm of the Sinaloa cartel, which is huge. And then they wanted to bring in El Mayo. El Mayo refused. So they extradited him with an El Paso plane to El Paso with no extradition. It was really a kidnapping. And so now we know, because of Maru Campos's own confession, that they were arresting and taking people over to the United States. She calls it extradition, but she has no extradition power, right? Because you need courts and you need paperwork and you need, and she wasn't doing that. This man that we were just listening to, he even said, what were they doing? Taking them over in trunks? Or were they taking them in the hearse? Were they taking them in the funeral vans? They were transporting these people. And they took El Mayo in a plane, right? They took El Mayo in a plane. And then they had their people in the FBI, like assistant special agent in charge, Connell Wetton, to be waiting there for him at the tarmac to arrest him illegally, with no. You see, they're making up their own laws. They're making up their own treaties, they have no regard for Mexico, and they have no regard for the United States. And I think this is very important because the bullies out there, the cartel bullies out there, want to make this national, like this is all America's fault. These are Americans flooding over. And then the Mexico wants, the Americans say, oh, the Mexicans are bringing the cartels over. And that is not the case at all. The case is you have an El Paso cartel that was an alliance with the Jeffrey Epstein money laundering system there in New Mexico. And just look at New Mexico. It's all blue. It's one of the very few blue states. It's all blue right now. It's so controlled. And with the Nova Casa Grandes and the colonies, colonial Dublin, colonial LeBaron, colonial Juarez, colonial, there's a few in there. And this Mormon faction that combined and were, trying to make their own rules, they were doing a coup. They wanted, I think, all of Mexico. And that's why this is so serious. And this is why they have to and did issue the subpoena and are investigating Maru Campos for treason. And I hope they do that with Greg Abbott. It is so complicated because this connects to the Strait of Hormuz, right? For Mexico, it's a little bit easier. For the United States, we have our hands in too many places. And this pipeline, but we've been called upon to be there for everybody, right? Because our economy is so big and so it's been so exploited. You can't even compare the economy of Texas compared to the economy of Chihuahua, right? You can't even compare it. And so that's why people wanted to come into the United States. and why there was trafficking into the United States to exploit it. So this pipeline, this trafficking pipeline, this cartel pipeline goes right into the Strait of Hormuz, goes right to Iran, which is the gateway to the fentanyl precursors from China. Okay. Um, Absolutely, we have followed that. The precursors, chemicals, come from China, and the pipeline for that is right there at the Strait of Hormuz. And Richard first started complaining, reporting from Qatar right there in the Strait of Hormuz. So this war with Iran, this deal, and and of course, President Trump has designated fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction. Okay, so this is what he is addressing right now. Of course, nuclear weapons. I have my thoughts on that. Nuclear weapons. Um, but he has the intel. He has the intel. Remember, he went after Iran shortly after El Mencho was killed, because when El Mencho was killed in that raid, they received a lot of logbooks, a lot of ledgers. They got a lot of intel from El Mencho. And it was just days later they were in Iran, because this is like the Iran Contra on steroids. And there is no coincidence that Jeffrey Epstein was part of Iran Contra then, being the financier for Khashoggi, and and then now, and then buying a ranch in New Mexico, a Zorro Ranch, right on the north um, tip of White Sands Missile Range restricted airspace, and then to have infiltrators in our military, which absolutely was happening, to um, control that airspace that's outside of the FCC, or FAA, so that they could traffic at will. Traffic at will, just fly right into Zorro Ranch, and then go, through Mexico down over to where Puerto Rico is, to the Little St. James. And from that area, it's just a little ways to the main hub, which is the Strait of Hormuz. So this is this big trafficking pipeline for the precursors, chemicals, to get it to Mexico, to go to those labs, to turn it into fentanyl, and to flood our countries with this deadly drug, this weapon of mass destruction, which we know because all of us, most of us, have someone they met that died of it, right? That we know somebody that suffered through this. Um, so what is going on in the politics in the United States when you have that kind of El Chapo, El Paso cartel, fentanyl money, um, and all the bad stuff that comes with it, paying, compromising senators, which we absolutely can see. We know, and it does. We have the Democrats, and then we have the rhinos, right? And we absolutely know that they're compromised. There's no doubt in our mind that Thune is compromised, that Ted Cruz is compromised, that Lindsey Graham is compromised, that Cornyn is compromised, uh, and they have showed it by their actions totally. Um, So, it- there is this perception they're deceivers. And so I think like one of the biggest deceivers is Tucker Carlson. And early on, some things happened, and he had direct contact with our family. Um, and you can tell that he was not genuine. He was not genuine. He's has a different loyalty, but just trying to fool the populace that he was for the people of the United States. But Tucker Carlson is not. Okay, he's not. He has a different loyalty, and that's very, very clear. So, and I can tell you that firsthand. The betrayal of our generals, they need to be stripped from the generals involved in this, and the chain of command, the senior NCOs, they need to lose every benefit. They need to absolutely, um, we cannot have a country when our generals are the enemy. Okay. Um, Absolutely. What they did was an act of war against the United States. It's mutiny. It's mutiny. It's treason. So the level of treason um, in our countries, in both Mexico and the United States, and the cause of it being the El Paso cartel, being the double agent, the operative Alejandra de la Vega Foster. Remember that she's married to Paul Foster, and Paul Foster was sued by Pemex for buying siphoned, stolen fuel from Pemex. Okay, that stolen fuel that was supposed to be the people of Mexico's fuel. They were stealing it, and Paul Foster was buying it. And Alejandra de la Vega had the nerve to hold up her hand and swear allegiance to Mexico, to the Mexican people, while her husband was buying stolen Pemex fuel. Um, you know, the brazenness, the evilness of that, the criminality of that, and then to serve simultaneously on Governor Abbott's administration and have access to the United States, to Texas. It just gives you the creeps, right? It just gives you the creeps. So they need to, because they have, it's a direct assault on the American people, Texans, the whole borderland, a direct assault on the Mexican people. To be a double agent, to sit on the commissions for law enforcement and intelligence, and be manipulated because you're the cartel. There's no doubt in my mind she's the El Paso cartel operative. And to make alliances with CJNG and invite and send a plane to pick up Abbott, to come to her house, to fine dine with CJNG, the flesh peddlers, the flesh eaters, the worst enemies against our countries, to plot, to conspire, to access our intelligence against any whistleblower to have the crematorium, she's absolutely in alliance with the Purchase Ariano Caron family. And to have a, they're just, it's hell on earth to have a flesh peddler. What were they doing with these bodies, right? And to have organ harvesting as part of it and the baby harvesting as part of it. Yes. And to get the contracts of our military, Woody Hunt, also an operative for the El Paso cartel, with every evil intention. Then they go on to Forbes and say, "Oh, I'm a billionaire. I've made an extra billion or whatever." All while they are absolutely facilitating the worst type of crimes against children, facilitating the worst type of crimes against Mexicans, against Americans, against the borderland, again, it is just, that's why we can't stop. And that's why we ask you to share, because it is just that serious. It is just that treasonous. It is just that treacherous. And it absolutely targets our total future, our future. And at any kind of peace and diplomacy and yeah, they are just the worst. So they have to be brought down. And praise God that we have President Trump that is addressing it right there in Iran, because that is the gateway to these precursors, to this. If you turn that off, if you turn that spigot off, there's so much that comes through that gateway, right to China, right through Iran and into the Strait of Hormuz, and then over to our countries. It's so important to get this right. And so to see President Trump's temperance, it's really amazing. Nobody knows right now what he's going to do. But he has been negotiating and negotiating and negotiating. He is leaving no option untested, right? Untried. He's trying everything over and over and over again to get this right without destruction and death and all of that. Being a wife of a military, being a daughter, military, so many presidents, they never wait this long. They never try all these options. He's absolutely doesn't care what the media says. He is talking to everybody and he's negotiating with everybody. He's really got the US Senate mad, which is a really good sign, right? Because they're totally compromised. Our Senate is so bad. They are so compromised. So to see them angry, to see them nervous, to see them upset, that they can't get their military contracts or something like that, and exploit our system because they belong to the El Paso cartel. You see, they belong to the El Paso cartel. El Paso cartel is the epicenter for this. It's very plain to see, and to see them upset is a good sign, a very good sign that President Trump is moving in the right direction, that we're moving in the right direction, and to see President Scheinbaum not look, a couple years ago, she wouldn't be able to make an EU deal. Uh, the cartel, Mexico was a cartel state. She wouldn't be able to make that deal. She would not be able to be the president of Mexico because the country was so infiltrated. And her making that deal with the EU was just beautiful to see because so many of these cartel leaders, hundreds of them, y'all, over 100 have been extradited to the United States. And many have been killed and many have been arrested. And so to see this freedom for the Mexican president to actually make a trade deal to get access to the European market for Mexico legitimately, not like how Maru Campos does it, but legitimately was just beautiful. It was just beautiful to see. And I believe she's going to try to, for Mexico, make a trade deal with China, a legitimate trade deal, because the whole narco economy has to be taken down. But then there has to be a legitimate economy that takes its place to bring in that golden age that President Trump talks about, the golden age. So I think he posted up a beautiful picture today of his view of America, and I thought it was beautiful. I should post it. So, let's just see what happens, what he has planned behind the scenes. And I have some other news here. Let me see if I can show you this. Yeah, there it is. So we have some breaking news too about the security business that Chihuahua Maru Campos contracted. And this is an explanation on that because that business called the Black Cobra or the Black Snake, it's a what is it called? I forgot the name already. Mamo or Marmo or whatever, but it means the black snake, some black snake security business. And so this was really a money laundering for the El Chapo Sinaloa cartel arm, right? So let's see what I can't really go in. Oh yeah, there it goes. So the United States Treasury sanctioned this business, and because they used crypto, it was a crypto network. That's how they were money laundering. So here it is. The U.S. Office of Foreign Assets sanctioned 6 individuals and 2 companies involved in a money laundering scheme for the Sinaloa cartel. This is targeting organizations linked to fentanyl flows entering the U.S. It's all about the fentanyl because it's so deadly and ruins so many lives. And, that's, you can't have a country when you're allowing that. So Armando and this Avals, part of the Chapitos faction of the Sinaloa cartel, headed the network. So here's his name. I don't want to butcher it in front of you, but headed the network and oversaw U.S. bound narcotics shipments. And so the laundering scheme was the network collected bulk cash deliveries from illicit drug sales, processed them, and converted them into cryptocurrency to be sent to Mexico, laundering proceeds from fentanyl, meth, and cocaine. And I went to this in 2020. We went over like 3 dozen times to Mexico. I had people crying on me and everything. It was just, and you just saw the pain there, what was going on. And of course, in the United States also. Um, Grupo Especial Mamba. Mamba is the type of snake. Negra means black. So this black mamba snake. It was a designated security company. It was a front company. That's what it was, a front company. And so was this Gortitas Chivas, which is a fast food restaurant as a front. Okay. And these were the cash couriers. And I posted up all the pictures. They posted the pictures of these people's faces. 6 additional individuals designated for moving bulk cash from the U.S. to Mexico. So that's why they want that border open, because they want that flow, that they don't want to be scrutinized because they're moving large amounts of drugs and cash across that border. The Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent, stressed that the Treasury will target terrorist cartels to keep America safe and stop the poison from flooding the U.S. borders. Well, it's more than poison now, right? It is a, uh-oh, my light went out. It is a weapon of mass destruction. So the consequences, all U.S.-based property and interests of the designated persons, including companies owned 50% or more by these individuals, are completely blocked. Completely blocked. And the big, and Tren de Aragua. And this is another thing too. Was El Paso cartel making an alliance with Tren de Aragua? Because they were making a absolute monopoly of cartels. Okay, they were doing a deal. They were applying business principles to the criminal world. That's what they were doing. Recently sanctioned. Okay, let's see if, leveraging crypto to launder illicit funds. Okay. So I thought that was really important to show. And of course, we've posted up many different posts today, and including the Osvaldo Rodriguez Barunda. He's the owner of El Diario, that is being paid loads of money to do these puff pieces and cover up stories for Maru Campos. Just to let you know, I think you already got it though, that the media is also compromised. And Osvaldo is absolutely tied to the El Paso cartel and the Juarez cartel. So he is absolutely compromised and part of it. And that's confirmed. So, and Calderon is coming out, the former president of Mexico, who really opened up Mexico to the El Chapo Sinaloa cartel. I think he's married to like El Chapo's sister or cousin. I think so. That is why he was just, so helpful to the Sinaloa cartel because, he was part of it. And Maru Campos, of course, um, got her early start through him and Cesar Duarte. So, and they're coming out for her now to protect her against these legitimate treason charges. Um, so thank you so much. I did put up a Memorial Day post for Richard, and I just want to thank everybody for all the very, very kind messages about for Richard. I just want to thank everybody so much. I got really nice calls today. And just thank you so much. And so the only thing that we ask is for you to share this story, to share Richard's story, um, to share it everywhere, because that is what is really going to drive them to give our son's remains back to us. There was a segment on Steve Bannon's show, The War Room, where they were talking about um, our soldiers that we need to bring their remains home. I'm just summing that up and I'm like, yep, yep. So please share this information. We are in the very vicious negotiation for the repatriation of our son's remains. Um, they are in Mexico, and we want his remains, and we want those that did this held accountable. So thank you so much. God, and how do we know that, um, the letters from President Trump were so jaw dropping, so abnormal, so indicative that he knows, he knows. So this is why we need you to share for support in getting Richard's remains and to get accountability. Thank you so much. God